You have spent the last 30 years building your retirement nest egg. You've got great tax deductibility benefits the whole entire way. Life is great until your silent business partner in retirement shows up and they want their money back. Yep, that happens to be Uncle Sam. He wants his money back before you die. That is why they have established required minimum distributions. They want to make sure you liquidate your IRAs before you die so that they can get their money back. We are going to talk about how to not miss opportunities to do Roth conversions and the strategies behind them. All right, we're going to talk about Roth conversions. Let's win with our finances, right there.
Absolutely.
Winning. All right, so Roth conversions, actually it's crazy. Everyone is just bringing up Roth conversions. I have no idea like why they're talked about. I mean, I understand why they're talked about, but like everyone's like, should we do Roth convert? Like just random clients are just bringing it up. And I know we've talked about it, but like it's a buzzword. It's a buzz topic for some reason. So we're going to break this down. We're going to kind of go through our segments, but I kind of have like a tales from the trenches. So when somebody approaches me and says, hey, what's going on? How should I do a Roth conversion? I mean, it's actually such a loaded question that I kind of put some thought into like 6 different ways that I approach it with a client or somebody that's looking to work with us. Like, hey, what do you think? I'm like, all right, buckle up. Here we go. But essentially, we're going to set the stage of, most people retire in their, early to mid 60s. RMDs start at age 63. I believe in like 2033 or something, it's going to jump to 75.
73. You said 63.
Did I say 60?
Yep.
Oh, 73.
Yep.
It's going to change to 75 in like 2033 because of the Secure Act or something like that from a few years ago. So essentially, if let's just say we retire at 62, right? We got 11 years to like, so this would be the opportune time to do a Roth conversion if it makes sense. And during that picture, and I tell people this all the time, I'm like, hey, you were working and you were in the highest tax brackets you were because you were saving money, paying down houses and things like that, whatever you're doing. And then when you retire, most of that stuff is taken care of. You're not saving anymore. You're spending. So you're actually most likely going to be in a lower tax bracket unless you're just a degenerate and like to spend money. Like that's okay. Well, that's why we build plans to like let you know, like, hey, are you overspending? Are you underspending? Whatever it may be. But you have opportunities at 62. You can delay Social Security and really keep your income low. But we've had talks on Social Security, why we think it's best to start it as soon as you can. But this is one of the wrinkles of why you might not want to, right? Yep. Is doing a Roth conversion because you want to do a conversion when your income is as low as possible. Right?
Exactly. And that's why this topic comes up quite a bit, I'd say, is because of what Tony just said there. So just to maybe back up a little bit. So if you're doing a Roth conversion, right, you're taking money out of your Roth, out of your traditional IRA or 401k bucket, and you're converting it to a Roth.
Right.
And when you do that, that's ordinary income.
Right.
So if you already have, $200,000 of income and then you do a Roth conversion on top of that, the conversion portion probably isn't going to be, you're not going to get a lot of bang for your buck on that one because you're paying the top tax rate for you in that scenario.
Yeah,
so.
and we talked in our educational classes. There's 2 C words when it comes to Roths: contributions and conversions.
Yep.
Contributions, you have to be working. The only way you can contribute to a Roth IRA is you have to have W-2 income or 1099. You have to have earned income.
Yep.
You can do a conversion anytime you want. When you're working, when you retire, does not matter, right? So I want to just make a distinction between that because again, the terminology in our industry can just get overwhelming.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, what is a conversion and why does it matter? So we just talked about that, taking your money from your traditional, moving it to your Roth. Why would you want to do that? Because both are tax deferred. It's just when you take a distribution from a traditional, it's always ordinary income, and a Roth IRA, all the distributions are going to be tax free as long as you made a 5-year rule and over 59 and a half. There's a couple of rules you got to satisfy. And also just so you know, like even if you do a conversion, the first money that comes out of a Roth IRA are your contributions, then your conversions, and then your gains. So the 5-year rule, the money's got to be in there for 5 years. It's the gains that you will be, taxed on if you don't satisfy the 5-year rule. Just so you know, just throwing some odd facts out there. So why does it matter? Why does it matter now? And again, I think a lot of people, and there's some scenarios where, when people retire, they find out they're chipping away at their IRA. They don't need to take that much money, but then the longer you wait, the money's most likely going to grow.
Right.
And all of a sudden you might be forced to take out more money than you actually need and pay additional tax. And then the money that isn't spent is going to be in a less tax efficient place, like a non-qualified brokerage account or something like that, right?
Or a CD at the bank.
CD at the bank, same thing. It's going to be in cash where it's always taxed. Gains on the investment are going to be taxed. Interest, yield, or dividends, all this stuff, it's always going to be taxed. That's why the tax deferred wrapper is so important. So that's the main reason why we want to do it. Now, what are the pitfalls? Well, you got to pay the tax. I mean, so we got to understand that, most people do, but yeah, to do this, it becomes income, and then you better understand and know that you're going to have a tax bill at the end of the year. You could thrust yourself into paying higher IRMA surcharges, right? And this is where some people get caught up on this, and you got to understand that if you're dedicated to Roth conversions, don't let this be the main hiccup.
Yep.
Because honestly, even if you go up a notch in IRMA, it might cost you $1,200 more a year.
Right.
It's more money, but if you can see the greater good and why you're doing a conversion, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is you got to get past that. You just got, because they reevaluate your IRMA, your what you're going to pay for Medicare on an annualized basis.
Yep.
So just put that on the back burner. Understand that that's part of doing business. State taxes, well, that's a very good point. Not many people think about that. And depending on what state you are, it could be less advantage. They're less advantage to do a Roth conversion based on how much taxes you may owe in the state that you live.
Yep.
Social Security taxation, this could thrust you into different brackets there. Doing a Roth conversion can in the long term help you keep your Social Security lower, because a distribution from an IRA is earning your income, and it affects the taxation of your Social Security. If you have all Roth and you're taking it from there, it's not taxable income.
Right.
So that's good too. And then, the sweet spot, we'll talk about this, but like not over converting, figuring out the right amount each year to convert, doing it all in one big year. You could just be being extremely inefficient with it. Not that it can't be done, and it's not, it can be done more efficiently. Not that it can't work out in the long run and things like that, but that's why we do Roth conversion strategies to figure out when to do it and how much to do.
Yeah, if you get on the old Google machine and you start Googling, Roth conversions, right? You're going to get 100 articles that says it's the greatest idea ever conceived by human minds, right?
Well, I mean, dude, you might get stuff that tells you it's bad, and it's the devil. The Google machine is a nasty creature,
especially
sometimes
when it comes to finance. Yeah. So I think step one or response number one to everything Tony just said there. Is not automatically a good idea to do a Roth conversion. It is very much dependent on your situation, where you are in life, and specifically what your income level is. That's why we're kind of focusing this on people who have just retired and now have no income. That's usually a pretty good area for people to do Roth conversions. But on top of that, it's definitely a sweet spot, right? You have to make a lot of, I don't want to call them complex calculations, but the right calculations. You need to make those in order to ensure that you're doing the right thing and the amount is correct and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So now I want to get into like the tales from the trenches. So I'm going to kind of lay out like six different things because I actually have a client coming in later today, believe it or not, and we're talking about, they want to know about Roth conversions. And I'm going to lay this into what is going on here, because it was one of the scenarios of what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and give you an estimate of what's going on. So first and foremost, you have to believe that taxes are going up in the future. I'm going to just start there. Why do you want to do it? Oh, like Social Security and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Well, if taxes are not going to go up, it may be just a moot point.
Yep.
But taxes are the lowest since World War I. We have $40 trillion in debt. I would imagine taxes are going to go up. By one of the next presidents coming up in the next couple of years, whatever, next couple runs, you got to believe that it's going up. And the thing is that most people, so the reason you're going to be taking money out of your traditional IRA is to cover your gap, right? Hey, I got Social Security, I might have a pension. I spend $50,000, a year in retirement, and Social Security gives me 30. I need 20 from my IRA. That would be your gap. Let's just give you a high level explanation of that, right? So do you have other sources to pull that money from? Do you have cash that you can use, right? If you're pulling out $50,000, if your income's $50,000, you got a lot of room to convert, because that's the next thing we need to understand is most likely when you saved money into your 401k was on the traditional side, and you got that nice, sexy tax deduction every single year. And you probably saved it at the 22, maybe even the 24% tax bracket. In the scenario I just laid out, saying, hey, I got everything's paid off, I'm not saving anymore, I got my bills are $50,000 a year, I'm just, again, hypothetical number, like you are now in that basic, you might even be in the 10 to 12% bracket. So now you can actually do the arbitrage. You can convert at 12 when you saved it, when you got a deduction at 22.
Yep.
So we need to understand that, because when we start thinking about it, and this goes back to point one, if you saved it at 22 but you're a higher spender in retirement and your tax bracket's in the 22% bracket, what are we really doing, right? Or we might just be moving sideways, and that goes back to, if you believe taxes are going up in the future, then yeah, you're still converting in the 22% bracket. But if you believe it's going to 30 in a few years, then you're getting a discount,
right?
So all right, so there's another thing. If you live within your means, so like here's a client. Here's the example I was going to talk about. They're coming in later today. No names, please. But they spend roughly, they spend roughly almost $50,000 a year. They're very, very probably below their means. I got to tell them they need to spend more money. Actually,
Yep.
the one max spends has them spending twice as much as they spend right now to maximize it. But they're not that type of people, right? So we did a back of the envelope calculation for the Roth conversion and saying, hey, we can do about $40,000 a year, because that is going to cap you out at up to the top of the 12% bracket, because they're saving in the 22. So that's what they can do. And we tell them, like, here's the notes, is like the footnotes, is like, we should do this exercise every single year, because maybe you need updates in your house and you need an extra $20,000. Well, that's $20,000 of extra income that you're going to need to pull from somewhere, and it's most likely your IRA. So we need to just kind of do a recap of like, hey, what do you expect going on this year? It's another reason why I usually do like Roth conversions in two waves. It's a dollar cost average kind of idea. Like, hey, if I don't want to just do it today and then the market goes down, and I could have converted it lower and paid less taxes. And also just things pop up throughout the year. So usually when I do a Roth conversion, it's $40,000. I'm like, hey, I'll call you in June or July. We'll do $20,000 now, and I'll call you in November, and we'll do the other 20 later. It's just, I like to dollar cost average out the risks of the market and life when I do that. But that's the whole premise for this client today that I'm going to talk about, is like, hey, about $40,000, and you're currently 65 years old. We have about 7 or 8 years of doing this, because when you hit 73, based on how much money you have, we're going to have to pull out 40 grand. So
probably more than that by that point too.
True, right? But the back of the envelope math is just saying like we can convert it at the 12% bracket today. When you hit RMD age, you're going to be pulling out 40 grand and the opportunity is closed. And that's why we mentioned up front is that most people miss this. They just don't want to pay the tax. Mm-hmm. And that's a consequence of success is what I've always said. Paying tax is a consequence of success. And in the same case in here, because we're trying to move the money into a more efficient bracket. So that's another thing. And another one is, why are you doing it? Are you just trying to beat Uncle Sam and get that 10% arbitrage, saved it at 22% bracket versus a 12? A lot of the discussions that I'm having and trying to open the eyes, and even the clients already have their eyes open to this, it's legacy planning. If you're going to pass on something to your children, it should be a tax-free account.
Yep.
Right? And they're still going to have to liquidate based on today's rules. They're still going to have to liquidate either a traditional or a Roth IRA within 10 years, but at least think about when your kids, when you pass away, when are they going to get that money? Probably in their 50s, plus or minus. That's probably their highest earning years.
Yep.
Last thing they need to do is have more income. Mm-hmm. So the legacy planning is honestly for them and for you is help them pay the tax for them now, especially if you have the means to do it. It's just going to be more efficient on a legacy standpoint. Because then they won't have to pay taxes when they're in their highest brackets. And then also think about when you're doing the legacy planning and you put that money in a Roth IRA and it's not for you now. I mean, it can be if you need it, but that account now needs to be outside of probably that client's comfort zone because it's for your kids.
Yep.
They have a different risk profile now, right? So think about who's it really for? Is it for you or for your kids or legacy, whatever it may be? Next thing is pay the tax with cash. That'd be the ideal thing to do. Not that it's more efficient to pay it with tax. It's at least efficient if you pay the tax from the IRA. It's just less going into the Roth IRA because you have to pay the tax. But it's still, if you still believe in everything I've talked to up to this point, if you have to pay it out of the IRA, you have to pay it out of the IRA.
Yep.
And then obviously, and we talked about this, do a tax projection, right? Make sure you're figuring out the most efficient number so that you kind of just, tap just below or just above the 22% bracket, because we should understand that, just because you creep into another tax bracket does not retroactive it to $1. Yep. So, all right, sorry, I rambled there for Derek. Any insight on that?
I'll just kind of summarize it there, since you kind of hit on all the major tales from the crypt.
Yeah, not tales from the trenches. There,
the trenches. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with all those. If you are approaching retirement, or maybe you're just into retirement, hopefully you have a financial plan. We talk about that all the time, but that is usually the prime time for Roth conversions and estate planning, right? And I think that's what a lot of people miss when they're trying to get into retirement, whether it's just not on their radar, or whomever they're working with, their radar, or like I've seen it a lot. They're just excited to get retired. There's stuff they want to do. They're not going to want to come into your office and talk to you about Roth conversions.
So think about this. It's kind of like where you get your your info from. Like, I want to do a Roth conversion. In this one particular situation, and I've seen it once or twice, or maybe even 3 times with different clients, they want to do a Roth conversion because they heard it's the best thing to do, and they have the means to do it, right? They have large IRAs, and they are worried about RMDs. I mean, they're going to they're going to take out a lot more money than they need, so they're like, they want to do it, but also, they didn't have kids, right? And so why are you doing it? You got to take out more money, but the legacy plan isn't as rich as if you had kids, possibly. And then then we kind of uncover, unwrap the onion a little bit, and now they're like, oh yeah, we want to be charitable. Then definitely don't do a conversion.
Exactly.
Give them the traditional, because they don't have to pay the tax on it. So after the planning process, we really figured out like, hey, we don't need to convert this whole, 7-figure traditional IRA. We can do a portion because part of it's going to a charity that, they want that in a traditional because they get an advantage for it. And you don't have to overpay in taxes. And, we kind of checked off a lot of boxes, but what we actually landed on is that we're just creating a different account bucket, a tax-free bucket. They didn't have one.
Yep.
Right. We got the tax deferred. We got the taxable bucket. Let's create the tax-free bucket.
Yep. Absolutely. So, and I feel like that is kind of the overlooked aspect when I hear people talking about it, is especially in the scenario that you outlined. I have several clients in that same kind of situation. They have the money. They're just not going to spend it. The Roth conversion as an estate planning tool is just so valuable because you can kind of prepay the taxes for your kids at a much lower rate, and the money goes directly to them after you pass away. So it's a very valuable tool, but like Tony said, you have to understand your why as well. You have to understand your situation. You don't just want to go out there and start, doing major Roth conversions because the internet said it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, what is your purpose?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of you doing this?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Are you trying to chisel your own RMDs down? Are you trying to pay it while taxes are low? Is it legacy planning? Is it just because you heard you read an article on the Google machine?
Right.
I get it, man. I've heard it all. And, my first question is why?
Yep.
Tell me why. Like whatever answer you give me is not wrong. I need to know the why so I can understand my next moves.
Yep.
So, all right,
so
man.
with tax season wrapping up here, we thought that was a good topic. But like Tony said, we do those conversions all throughout the year, and I'm doing quite a bit of them in the fourth quarter as well. So something to think about there. Something to think about out there. If you are in that age range specifically, new to retirement. So. Thanks very much for listening this week. If you guys have any questions or comments, ideas for a show, hit us up at info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.